Swallowing is the body's reflex that allows food to pass through the mouth and into the stomach. Some people have physical conditions that make swallowing difficult. In this video, we will discuss the complications that sometimes arise when people swallow. We will also suggest ways to prevent difficulties with swallowing. We know when someone is swallowed by watching his or her Adam's apple move up and down. Let's take a look at what happens internally when someone swallows. Chewed food turns into a soft round mass called a bolus in our mouth. Saliva mixes with the food and liquid to make it easier to swallow. The tongue controls the bolus and directs it back towards the throat. When the bolus reaches the back of the tongue, where the uvula hangs down, the soft palate closes to prevent the food or liquid from going into our nose. This motion triggers the swallow. As the food or liquid passes into the pharynx, the larynx, or Adam's apple, elevates. The epiglottis covers over the airway and the vocal cords close. This keeps the food or liquid from entering the airway or trachea and going into the lungs. Vocal cords are concealed behind the Adam's apple. If food or liquid gets into the trachea, we can choke. Once food or liquid moves past our airway, it enters the flat tube called the esophagus and on into the stomach. Despite how quickly we swallow, we can see how complicated the process actually is. If someone experiences a problem swallowing and food or liquid goes down the trachea instead of the esophagus, the following could happen: coughing, choking, respiratory problems, dehydration, malnourishment, pneumonia, and even death. Let's take a look at some of the symptoms a person may exhibit when experiencing a problem swallowing. Choking, from food going down the wrong pipe. Coughing or clearing their throat during or after a meal. A wet-sounding voice, due to food or liquid resting above their vocal cords after they swallow. These symptoms may indicate that the food is dripping into the airway while swallowing. What can cause a swallowing problem? Incomplete chewing, which can cause people to choke. Accepting too large a mouthful or sip before swallowing the contents already in their mouth. Poor tongue control that fails to push back the food toward the throat. Instead, the food may come out of the front or sides of the mouth. It can even collect along the inside of the cheeks. Some people experience a slow swallow. These symptoms may indicate that the food is dripping into the airway while swallowing. A major consequence of a swallowing difficulty may be choking or developing frequent pneumonias. If caregivers notice any of these problems when a person is swallowing, they should alert their physician, who will refer them to a qualified swallowing therapist. Individuals may experience feeding and swallowing problems from the inability to effectively use utensils, putting too much food into their mouth at one time, impulsively shoveling food into their mouth without swallowing, refusing to open their mouth when being fed. Here is how you can prevent swallowing complications. Provide the person with the correct diet, including fluid modification, and always use appropriate positioning. Positioning. In order to prevent food from going into the airway while eating or drinking, a person should be in a comfortable and stable position. The head and neck should be upright so that the tongue can control the movement of the bolus. Each person's capabilities will vary. When necessary, a qualified swallowing therapist will assist you in determining the best position for your client. To prevent people from changing their position when you are feeding them, bring the spoon directly to their mouth. Place the spoon at mouth level. Otherwise, they may bend down or look up like a baby bird, which may send food down the wrong pipe, causing them to choke. Wait until the person you are feeding has swallowed before you give them their next mouthful. Remember to watch for the Adam's apple to move up and down. This means they have swallowed properly. To prevent reflux and aspiration, Keep clients upright for a full 30 minutes after they have finished their meal. Control the environment during meal times. Keep it quiet and limit any possible distractions. Don't engage people in conversation during mealtimes, and if they are naturally talkative, move them into a quieter area in order to limit their social interaction while they are eating. If you are feeding someone, provide them with small sips and small bites. Wait until you have seen them swallow before you give them their next mouthful. Never use a soup spoon when feeding someone. A teaspoon is a more appropriate size for most individuals. Serve food in small portions and always wait until someone has finished their meal before serving them any additional food. Alternate between solids and liquids when serving a meal. End every meal with liquid to wash down the residual in their mouth and at the top of their throat. Monitor the temperature of meals, making sure meals are neither too hot or too cold. If you notice that a person is experiencing problems while swallowing and can rule out environmental causes, their diet should be reevaluated. Symptoms of swallowing problems are coughing, throat clearing, or a wet-sounding voice. If a person's swallowing has improved, the diet should be reevaluated for potential upgrade by a swallowing specialist. Signs of improvement include being more alert during a meal and not spilling the food from their mouth, chewing and swallowing easily and more quickly than before. We hope that this video has helped you to understand how complex the act of swallowing is, and that this information assists you in the ongoing care of your clients. For further information, please visit us at www.ggrc.org.